I am, I am very excited about this topic. On the one hand, I will have a little bit of bad news, but I also enjoy really giving good news. And I think for all of us listening in today, it will be good news because we will be the game changers on this topic. So the topic, I said the talk is hardwired to connect. So you will hear what that entails. But the topic is on the mental health of children. So the reason why I chose this topic is I've been working for the past few years with a lot of kids that goes into the foster system. But it's not only those kids that we include here when we talk this afternoon. So just a little bit of what we are going to touch on. Um, we are going to talk about a two-part crisis, the new scientific case that is presented, and which is the authoritative communities. But the nice part is, what does this mean for us and what can we do to make a difference? So in South Africa, there is they call it the treatment gap of 75% of mental health patients that are not treated. And the absence of treatment is the norm rather than the exception. South Africa has significantly limited specialist services in both the private and government sectors, and most services are offered by non-governmental organizations to small portions of the population. Furthermore, infant mental health is also not yet sufficiently reported. Sorry, I can't see on the screen. I'm sorry, I just want to move this bar. The mental health is not yet sufficiently represented in either undergraduate or postgraduate psychology and psychiatry training programs, although the need for this has recently been acknowledged. Now, all this I found in several studies that was done in South Africa. Only one South African university offers a program on infant mental health at a postgraduate level, that is the University of Stellenbosch. So today I will be talking to you about a report that was written by 33 professionals from the USA. They are in the medical field, researchers, psychiatrists, and psychologists, and pediatrics, working with children on mental health issues. Now, you would say this report is very old, and I would agree with you. It's already 20 years old. But I share this with you because I believe this is where South Africa is today. And I see it. The reason why I say that is because I see it in practice when I work with these children, and when I work in statutory organizations. I also see that that all these symptoms, or yes, if I can call it maybe symptoms, I see it in practice. So the Commission reports on a two-part crisis. On the one hand, they say the one part of the crisis is our waiting lists are too long. And then they also state that their intellectual models are inadequate. So I tried to find a little bit of research in South Africa, but I don't think there exists research really in South Africa, new research on this topic. So I went to the World Health Organization report of 2022, where they reported that 970 million people in the world are living with a mental disorder. That was in 2019. 82% of these 970 million were in low and middle income countries. In all the countries, mental disorders are largely untreated. It is also the leading cause of years lived with disability, and suicide remains a major cause of death globally. The economic consequences of mental health conditions are enormous, with productivity losses significantly outstripping the direct costs of care. Mental health systems all over the world are marked by major gaps in governance, resources, services, information, and technologies for mental health. Several factors stop people from seeking help for mental health conditions, including limited access to quality services, low levels of health literacy about mental health, and pervasive stigma. This last point I see every day. So the report from the Commission this is now in the USA in 2003, 21% of ages 9 to 17 years old children have a diagnosable mental health or addictive disorder. By the 1980s, US children reported more anxiety than did the children who were psychiatric patients in the 1950s. 8% of high school students at that time suffered from clinical depression. 20% of students reported having seriously considered suicide in the past year. And then the Commission also reports on unacceptable high rates of behavioral problems, which I also see every day in practice. So the intellectual models are a little bit based on medical research findings, but the two models one is the pharmacological model, which actually says that we have to treat mental health problems with medication. But now the question that is asked is the medication more important than finding the reason why the children are experiencing depression, anxiety, ADHD, conduct disorders, and emotional and behavioral problems? So we can medicate, but we also need to find out what is the reason why these numbers are increasing. And then the at-risk model focuses on the person and that the problem is inside of the person. So they would typically say that what is wrong with this person? So the problem here is that it's not only the only reason why a person, it's not just a biological thing. It's also a social problem and a communal problem. So the way that we address this problem should be looked after and see how we can address it more effectively. So this commission wrote a report and they suggested that humans, well, they didn't suggest, they proved that scientific findings show that humans are hardwired to connect. And then the second thing is that humans are hardwired for meaning, born to search for purpose and reflect on life's ultimate ends. Okay, so now you can ask me, what does this have to do with anything? So they looked at 10 important markers to look at this whole report and to write the whole report in perspective and make a conclusion. So the first one is that we as humans are biologically primed. So Alan Shore of the UCLA School of Medicine in the USA says the idea is that we are born to form attachments, that our brains are physically wired to develop in tandem with another's through emotional communication, and this begins before words are spoken. Now, Alan Shore's work further suggests that the self-organization of the developing brain occurs in the context of a relationship with another person, another brain. This relational context can be growth facilitating or growth inhibiting. And so it imprints into the developing right brain either a resilience against or a vulnerability to later forming psychiatric disorders. Then in the second place, we have the environment. So we are looking at either nurturing environments or environments where nurture is left behind. Nurturing environments or the lack of them affect gene transcription and the development of the brain circuitry. Now, this is quite shocking They did a lot of studies. They did studies with rats. They did studies with monkeys. And listen to this. When they studied rats, the good mothering measurably enhanced a pup's emotional and physiological resilience. This can also be passed on by the pup to future generations. And these positive traits become biologically patterned in the pup's DNA. This leads to influencing genetic transcription. So can you imagine what happens in humans? Then the social context. The social context can alter genetic expression. This is what they researched. All these, this 33 experts researched over time. So Stephen Soumi of the National Institute of Child Health and Human Development researched these special monkeys, rhesus monkeys. So he found that when the monkeys with the heritable trait of that is associated with anxiety are placed with especially capable and nurturing mothers, monkey mothers, their tendency to anxiety and the tendency to abuse alcohol disappears. So once again, can you think what happens in humans? Adolescent risk-taking and novelty-seeking. So these experts found that adolescents are a social and cultural, adolescence is a social and cultural construction, but the research demonstrates that adolescence is a biological construction as well as social, due to the alterations in the brain structure and the function that takes place during the teenage years. There is a lack in meeting the teenagers' need for risk, novelty, excitement, and peer approval, and at the same time, leading them to maturity. Then assigning meaning to gender is another point that they make. The need to attach social significance and meaning to gender appears to be a human universal. Gender runs deeper than a set of traits and engaging in certain roles. It runs near the core of human identity and social meaning, in part because it is biologically primed and connected to differences in brain structure and function, but also in part because it's so deeply implicated in the transition to adulthood. Neglecting the gendered needs of adolescents can be dangerous. So the beginning of morality. The human infant is born to attach. That's what we said now before. So how does this relate to morality? Listen closely. This is shocking. This born to attachedness is the essential foundation for the emergence of conscience and of moral meaning. If a child does not attach fully to his primary caregiver, his conscience and his moral meaning, and then in the end, his conscience will not develop as it should. The ongoing development of morality. Barbara Stilwell said in her research, what really holds potential for making a moral impact on a mid-adolescent is a powerful connection with an individual or individual adults whom he can admire or idealize. And then she continues to say, these are individuals in the community who can inspire him to make moral sense of the social confusion of his surroundings. So then we look at primary nurturing relationships, the spiritualization of attachment. So children attribute traits of their parents and their experiences with their parents to God. This is a natural thing that happens automatically. And attachment helps to shape these early religious experiences. And we will see why this is important. So religion and spirituality influence well-being. So there's many studies that show us that religion and spirituality contributes to well-being. So studies show that faith and practice of religion have a notable and consistent relationship with improved health and longevity. less hypertension and depression, lower risk of suicide, less criminality, and less alcohol and drug abuse. And what they also found in this commission is that personal devotion among adolescents were associated with reduced risk-taking behavior. It is also associated with more effectively resolving feelings of loneliness, greater regard for the self and others, and a stronger sense that life has meaning and purpose. And then number 10, the human mind is built to ask questions and seek answers. Research suggests that humans need to know what is true about life's purpose and ultimate ends. And that should be connected to brain functions underlying many spiritual and religious experiences. So what does this mean? The commission recommended, or they proposed, that authoritative communities are groups that live out of the type of connectedness that our children increasingly lack. And we will see how we can address that. So the rationale around which this was built is if children are hardwired to connect, which they did prove, they've been doing research since the 1950s about this. And if the current ecology of childhood is leading to a weakening of connectedness, and therefore to growing numbers of suffering children, building and renewing authoritative communities is arguably the greatest imperative that we as a society face. So what does an authoritative community look like? So it is based on 10 principles. Number 1, it's a social institution that includes children and youth. Number 2, it treats children as an end in themselves. It's a warm and nurturing community. It establishes clear limits and expectations. It's mainly done by non-specialists, which is interesting. It's multi-generational. It has a long-term focus. There's a shared understanding of what it means to be a good person. It encourages spiritual and religious development, and it is based on love of your neighbor. So what does this mean for us? So I went through those 10 principles, and I tried to make it practical for us today. Me and you are part of a community, and maybe one person is not able to change a community completely, but we can foster a few things in our communities to combat this growing number of children falling into mental health issues. And I'm telling you, I am not, I haven't been a social worker for very long. I completed my degree at the end of 2023. And the 3 months that I did my practicals at a welfare organization in Potchefstroom, I don't know if I worked with 5 families that did not suffer from mental health problems. So what can we do? As part of an authoritative community, we can be part of that Mommy and Me group that involves the 10 neighborhood families. We can care about our children, especially not for only winning a trophy at the debate tournament, but also care about the child for who he or she is. We can be the nurturing grandmother or the nurturing grandfather or the nurturing mother or father that that child can admire. We should give children clear boundaries and limits. This is a big problem today with parents. Then we can make sure our child is part of and enjoy the benefits of being part of a multi-generational group. Your own family, take deliberate action to talk about these things, share memories, share stories, Make up a family tree and show your child where he comes from. What are the principles and the values that we as a family live by? Build frequent, enduring, and permanent relationships with others. Yes, your family members, but also your neighbors, your friends, people around you, the people at your congregation. Be trustworthy, have principles, values, and norms, and stand up for it. Live them out. Make them part of your life every day. Take your children and your grandchildren with you to your religious practices or to your church. Be respectful and teach your children to be respectful. There might be many more ideas and things that we can do, but this is just a handful of ideas that I thought can make it a little bit practical for us. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and you are welcome to ask questions.
Hey, any questions for Susan? Susan, doesn't seem like there are questions. Thank you for the presentation. And then everybody, you can watch out for the link that we will distribute if you would like to watch it again and maybe share it with somebody else.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, Yaku.
Bye-bye, everyone.